I'm going to officially call this meeting to order. This is a special meeting. Normally, we have these meetings on Wednesday night. So this is Monday, February 24th, 2025 at 7:30 p.m. I'm going to call the meeting to order. If you guys could just make sure your cell phones are off. I know. I always forget that, even though I'm the one that tells everybody to do it. Look, mine's on. Okay, now it's off. Okay, we're going to start with a couple postponements and continuations. First item is calendar number 25-2024. We're going to open and then immediately recontinue this to March 19th of 2025 at the request of the applicant who could not attend tonight's meeting. And that's for 223 Middlesex Road. The second thing we're going to talk about is calendar number 1-2025. We're also going to open and then immediately recontinue to March 19th, 2025 at the request of the applicant, who also cannot attend tonight's meeting, couldn't get a babysitter. And that's for 1 Swifts Lane. I am going to mostly stick to the agenda, but there is one thing I want to address in other business first and foremost. So we've got an issue with how things go down, and I'm suggesting that we do an executive meeting of just us to review this. What basically happens is if we approve something with stipulations, the ZEO holds the authority to override and grant a CO without the stipulations coming into play. And it's happened on several cases in the last few weeks. If that's the case, my concern is we have a broken system. Because when a neighbor comes in front of us and we grant something with a stipulation, it's with great thought and care, concern for the neighbors and concern for precedent that causes us to do that. So I take it pretty seriously. It hasn't been an issue in the past. I don't know why things have changed. We've actually met once about the process and what we can do to ensure that our departments are working well together and that the neighbors have confidence when they leave here that what we've said will be done. So I'd like to make a move to suggest that we hold an executive session. Woody recommends we involve town council to figure out what can be done about this.
Your choice, but yes.
Okay. Does anyone want to say anything about that?
I think that's a wise decision. I think it would be helpful to have a session like that to talk about it. And I think that would be more appropriate maybe than doing it in the settings where we're evaluating proposals.
Okay.
I agree. I mean, we're potentially discussing litigation also, so in private's the more appropriate place to do it. But just one question. So the zoning enforcement officer issued some sort of zoning certificate for each of these properties?
Correct.
Did he do so knowing that they were not in compliance and granted it without stipulations and
Correct.
granted it anyway?
We held a special meeting to stop and explain why our committee arrived at the decision we did, why the stipulations we felt were very important and should be enforced. Despite that, he found a reason to overrule and grant the CO.
That's so confusing.
ZEO holds the ultimate authority. We don't.
With enforcement, not with promulgation of what is in effect the zoning regulations, right? There's zoning regulations. Our actions amend those.
Correct.
He doesn't have the authority to interpret that differently if it's clear.
Kevin, it's an interpretation.
Okay.
And I don't want to get into the specifics of why it happened, but you're exactly right. In our minds, it was very clear what we stated. In his mind, it was a gray area.
Okay, well, I would like to understand that a little better than the absurdity of it. But, and I take it nobody appealed it then, right?
We may have some appeals going forward.
Okay.
I think it's also fresh. Like, what are we doing here then?
Right.
Right? Like, what? How many meetings you guys have been here? I haven't been around as long, but like, what are we doing then?
I mean, it's one thing for the CEO to find a reason why we were egregious in our decision, or it didn't hold up.
Or there was a code issue that we didn't know about. Well,
That's not what I'm talking
fine,
about.
that's not it.
This has been a judgment call that's gone against our board's vote in at least 2, and I think a third case is now.
I would just like to
over.
understand the specifics of whether genuinely there was a gray area or if there's something else going on here.
I think it's something, I can get into the details of it at a special meeting. I guess to
Okay.
Jana's point,
Okay,
to
yeah, I
Eric
agree.
tonight,
I think
we're
it's- I
good
think
with
that's-
that?
Yeah, I agree, and people, it's a busy calendar
It
anyway.
is.
And I think because of potential litigation, we should do it in private, yes.
Perfect. But John's right. I mean, the point is, like, what are we doing? If we're making decisions that then aren't being supported by the other departments within Darien, then why are we making these decisions?
And in some cases, we're making decisions based on neighbor feedback whose rights are changing based on the variance, and then that feedback's incorporated, or in this case, maybe not incorporated. Just seems like it becomes somewhat of a waste of time.
I agree, John.
Yeah.
So we'll hold a special session. So I will make a motion to have an executive session within the next few weeks where we can all convene and discuss the specifics.
And can we, I presume, Woody, there's no issue with doing that partially remotely?
Talking about like logging in and
So
logging
Yeah, yeah,
so
if it is
so
during the
so
day.
everybody, and
Yeah.
also then everybody
Yeah.
can really.
I'm
there should be
good.
any
Woody, I
problem.
don't think there's any problem with that. We did that during COVID.
I'm
right?
pretty sure we can do that.
Yeah,
It probably involves personnel issues too. So pending
Right.
litigation, personnel
okay,
matters.
yes, agreed. There's
There's enough-
multiple reasons
I
why.
think
we
there's
can
enough
do it,
there
yes.
to have an
Okay.
executive
Yes,
session.
okay.
All
So
right.
my point was be, if it's during the day, as long as it's remote, I can be flexible
Just wait,
anytime,
okay.
otherwise. it's gonna
We'll,
be-
we'll work around you, yeah.
Okay.
We'll do something that works for
Okay.
everybody. Okay. So I'm going to make a motion to move to an executive session to review the ZBA and, what would you call it? What do I say? The zoning
Well,
enforcement.
to set up a special meeting with town council to review our zoning enforcement circumstances, let's say.
Okay.
Involving potential litigation, that's the term of art in the statute, and personnel matters.
Correct. I'll make a motion.
A second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, 5-0, we'll hold a special session. Thank you. Sorry about that, guys. We're going to move on now to the regularly scheduled items. We're going to start with calendar number 30-2024, which is 6 Pratt Island. If you could just state your name for the record so that we can get that in the notes. And anybody who wishes to speak has to come up to the microphone, even though it's a small room, we can hear you, just you have to come up and state for the record.
Very long password.
Do your passwords have to change every week? Jake Watkins. I'm with Roger Ferris and Partners Architects. I'm representing Abigail and William Hausberg, who are joining us this evening. Azure D. Slecker is also here from Race Coastal Engineering, as well as Ted Malone of Redness and Meat. Here to discuss 6 Pratt Island. Hausberg's purchased the property in August 2018. The house was originally constructed in 1920. What they are proposing to do, what we are proposing to do, is to lift the house to, in its existing position, not moving it, so that it's FEMA compliant. We're proposing to remove several dormers that are on the roof. We're proposing to create a new addition to the front garage. And we're also proposing to do some cosmetic work, siding, windows, roof, that sort of thing. This is just basically showing the fact that it was built in 1920. These are the existing photos of what the house looks like. We already have ZBA approval from 2022 for several additions and raising of utility equipment on the side yard over in this area right here.
Were those changes made?
Some of the changes were made, yes, and we received a building permit for all the changes.
Is it complete?
No, not yet. And the owners basically determined that they want to lift the house to make it FEMA compliant, to make it safe for the family, and to make it basically of the environmental code of which it's in. showing the existing plan. This is the existing survey. Shows basically all of the existing conditions that are non-conforming. The site is an undersized lot. It's 0.76 acres. The house is in partially a VE zone, partially an AE zone.
Can you define what that means?
Basically two different flood plains. One requires more stringent flood construction than the other in a really simplified way.
Okay.
The house is basically, and it also determines the elevation of the house. The house is at an elevation 12. Because the VE zone is passing through the middle of the house, this purple line right here, the entire house needs to be lifted up to the VE zone elevation.
That is velocity zone, is that what that stands for?
Velocity, yeah.
Okay.
Because the elevation's at 12, the bottom of the structure of the house needs to be 1 foot above elevation 15, which essentially means that the first floor elevation needs to be at elevation 17. So we need to raise the house up 5 feet. The other kind of restrictions that you'll see here are the setbacks. Because the property does not touch a street as defined by the Darien zoning regulations, the 40-foot rear setback applies to all the lot lines. So what you have is a buildable area shown in this red dotted line that's really narrow and really long. It's essentially 18 feet for 70 feet of the property. That means that all the existing house that's shown in red is outside that setback. And the existing house shown in green, the small sliver of the garage right here, and a small portion of the kitchen in this area are conforming. Those are the only parts that are conforming. Additionally, this area in yellow, this is a neighbor access road running right through the middle of the property. All the neighbors for Pratt Island access their property through that road around the entire, so that's another.
I'm sorry, Jay, can you show me where that is? You were blocking part of it.
This.
So the yellow is is it an
That's-
easement? It's just a neighbor?
It's a neighbor easement. It's an
Okay.
it's an easement on the property. It's how all the neighbors, basically over here on Nash family, these properties, all access. I'll go back to the overall map.
Okay.
Basically, this is the road right here. All of these properties are accessed through that road. And that's going right through the middle of the property. So in terms of the proposal, this is the proposed site plan. They're proposing several things. I'm sorry to be standing right in front of the screen. I'll try to do this over here. So basically, it's like I said, to raise the house to 17 feet in this existing position. They also want to raise the utility deck that's on this side to the same elevation to make all the existing utilities compliant. They want to add a 2-story addition in the front of the garage right here, which is green because that's compliant. That was approved, and we have a building permit for already as part of the last application. As is this vestibule right here. That was previously approved through a zoning variance. The stair in the back would need to get reconfigured for access, as well as removing 4 dormers that are on top of the house. Just to walk through the what we're asking for from a height perspective. So this is the existing condition of the property. The blue line right here is the base flood elevation line. It's running through the middle of the house. But there is a process, a really actually straightforward process, to raise the house up 5 feet on its existing footprint. Raise that up 5 feet. The bottom of the structure is 1 foot above that base flood elevation, which makes it compliant. Even though we're raising it 5 feet, we're only asking for 1.3 feet in a variance. That's because we are adjusting these dormers. Due to the Darien Town Code, the dormer is basically the midway point between the eave of the dormer and the ridge of the roof dictates where you take the height from. So we are minimally impacting the height by removing those dormers and essentially only increasing the total height by 1.3 feet as opposed to 5 feet. before we came before you, before we came to the town, we had to go to the state because of this unique condition and the fact that we're over the mean high water line. Azure's here to talk about that this evening.
For the record, Azure D. Slicher with Race Coastal Engineering. I'm a professional engineer in Connecticut, also a certified floodplain manager. So as Jake mentioned, portions of the existing house are over the seawall, over the mean high water line. It's a pre-existing condition that perhaps had never been authorized originally, but also the house predates the state regulatory jurisdiction, which was in 1939, and the house is 1920. So we did go to the state in order to lift the house. Right now, the part of the house foundation is sitting on the seawall. And so the seawall being in the state's jurisdiction, and some portion of the deck and portion of the house overhangs the seawall, we had to get the state's permission to separate the house from the seawall, lift it up over their jurisdiction, and maintain it. So the state did authorize us to maintain the portions of the house that are over the seawall and in the state's jurisdiction to remain so. So it is lifting it off the foundation, cutting out portions of the seawall, and then putting it on a new foundation down in its place. And so we went through a full process with the state, looking at it from their compliance perspective as well as from a flood zone compliance perspective. We had a meeting with the state flood insurance coordinator as well as town staff to go over the compliance of lifting the house, and we have a unique site here with varying grades and elevations, and whether or not, you know, tearing out the existing foundation and having things flow through. It was a discussion as to how everything was compliant. And in the end, the state determined that they thought it was compliant, and they issued this permit. So.
I guess I'm confused. So you went through the process of detaching from the seawall.
Well, that's part of the proposal to detach. We haven't detached yet.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't know if you want to go back to the, can I flip back to the photo?
Because it looks like the home has been substantially renovated. No?
Over time, since 1920, there have been some
Okay.
renovations.
So nothing in the past. You've had these permits to go forward, but you have not finished.
The order of operation is basically go to the state, get their approval with this application.
Yeah.
Go to you, get the approval with the same application. And then we'll be able to move forward with the project. But we had to get the state's approval first.
I'm surprised the state approved this.
They,
It's in a high velocity zone. Like, what was it about your application that, what,
The purpose of the project is to lift the house so that it meets the requirements of that zone. So making it safe, having everything below that base flood elevation of 15 to be flow through, and it's some of the other construction requirements for the VE, the velocity zone, are elevated on columns so that you don't have traditional foundation walls. You have columns that the water can, the columns themselves are designed for the flood forces, but there's no walls to take additional flood loads, and everything can flow through and come out again. And so right now it doesn't do that. And we are proposing that it will be compliant when the project is complete.
at this next stage?
At this next stage. And this permit was just issued a couple of months ago, so Jake mentioned other work and other variances issued years ago, but this is a new permit that we just got specifically for this work.
Jake, if you're going to go to all this trouble, why don't you just move the house back? Was that something that you guys considered as part of this?
yeah, actually, we did. I think
I was on this first hearing, so I'm looking back at our notes. I mean, we were definitely concerned about like the assessed value and the renovation being 50%. Go ahead.
they weren't intending to move the house at all originally up anywhere during that first application.
Okay.
They want to move the house now. This is
Why?
for the reasons, for safety.
No, but why is it important now and wasn't
And it
when you
wasn't
came
important
here
when
for
you-
the
If you wanna
previous
talk, you're welcome
variance
to.
that got approved, right? It kind of feels like half the project came before us and now there's another piece coming before us, right?
Well, that's why we're before you, because the project changed, the intentions of the project changed. We want to make sure that you guys hear the whole project. The only part of the project that was built as part of the first permit was the utility part, and that was actually raising that up, moving it further away from the water and moving the utilities up to a floodplain elevation. This is the next stage, and this is a reconsideration. I mean, the house was built here in 1920. It is built before all zoning laws were established in the town of Darien. It's a pre-existing non-conforming condition. And they want to bring it up to the standards of today, which is up to the floodplain levels. Your question was, why not move the house? This is the least obtrusive, least invasive, least number of changes they could possibly approve in order to get the house up to a FEMA elevation. If you were to move the house, you would require additional variances through the different yard setbacks. So if you were to move it, say, further south, you would have to require 3 different variances on that side. You would also have neighbor objection on that side, which you've already received a letter commenting on that to begin with as well. So in terms of the application in front of you today, this is by far and away the simplest application to bring it up to national flood standards.
This is the least offensive of the things that could be done. I hate to use the word offensive, but
It's
like if
not,
you're
but
looking at.
it's not offensive though. It's that they have a right to have this house in a very difficult situation, which is this property. As it's shown here on this slide right here, you see the number of hardships that are on this property right here.
Yeah. The setbacks on every side, the easement of the driveway, the flood zone.
Let me, to your point previously too about raising the house. So we went through the structural idea too. How do we actually raise it? What is the steel? What is the reinforcement that has to go in there? So that's been reviewed by a structural engineer, and it has been, thoroughly looked at on site. In terms of the number of variances that are being requested, these areas in yellow are the list, right, of what you have in your public notice. And it's at the rear of the house. That's an existing setback that we're not changing at all. At the rear of the house again, we're not changing that. That's just raising up higher. This is the utility platform right here. That setback is not changing at all.
Jake, so
Was
spell it
that
out.
approved as part of the first one? What mechanicals being raised was approved as part of the first one?
This was approved as part of the first one. We're actually raising it up higher this time. This stairway is actually an improvement on the existing setback by approximately 2 feet. There's an existing stairway that comes out the rear of the house right here, and we're actually setting it back further, changing the orientation of it, and adding a number of stairs because we have to raise the first floor up higher. We're actually improving the setback on the western side as well.
So you're reducing the nonconformity by a net of, do you have any kind of percentage, square footage? You're doing a great job by showing, thank you.
Percentage?
Yeah.
So I would say, so it goes from basically 10 to 12.
Okay.
There we go. That's that
So you're
percentage.
increasing the scale of the home, but you're reducing the nonconformity by moving some things back further.
That's exactly what we're doing.
You're bringing it more, it's safer.
Yes,
All the utilities are
yes.
where they should be.
We're reducing the number of nonconformities in this current situation.
We're giving you a hard time because
I understand why you're giving me a
this
hard time.
board, you have to know how many times people come in front of us and go, we're gonna raise this house, it's all good, and they start raising the house and the thing falls down. Then you gotta come back in front of us, because the CEO might override this and say, well, and it puts us in this really hard position where we're like, if we had just made the neighbors move the house in the first place, everybody would be happier.
So we have 2 engineers here tonight. We've had house moving specialists out to the site. Structural engineer has been out to the site as well. Several architects have been out there too, not that that matters. But there have been a lot of people looking at this. It's been approved on the state level already too, with regard to its current location being raised in its current location.
Could you just finish this?
I'm sorry, I didn't-
No, it's
yeah,
okay, no,
Kevin's right.
So on the second floor
Yeah.
deck, what's going on there?
So the second floor deck is actually being improved by approximately 2 feet. What we're doing to do that, there are 2 small bay windows and existing decks that are on the second floor too. We're removing those bay windows, setting this new deck back further from the property line.
But it'll extend all the way across.
It'll extend all the way, basically connect where this deck is and this deck is right here. And then,
Is the foundation being removed?
no, the foundation's gonna stay in place, but essentially we need to work around it with new grade beams, new piers, and lift it up to the new elevation that it needs to be. But, the
The existing foundation stays in place?
No.
You're just extending it up?
It stays in place, and then the piers will be in line with the existing seawall, wherever that is, right there. The seawall has to stay in place the whole entire time. There has to be a new breakaway condition or no condition that's basically set in between the piers that are gonna be put in place. Just to say from a neighbor perspective.
Well, just the chicken coop, what's?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, let me go back to the chicken coop.
That is my biggest priority right now.
Yeah, no.
What is
it's-
happening?
Let's talk about it, because I like chickens and roosters.
I do as
we
well.
should.
We are animal friendly.
We're requesting a variance for the chicken coop.
It's there, is it not there now?
It's currently there now.
When was it built?
It was built after the first application.
Was that part
Do
of
we have a
the-
chicken variance?
Was that part of?
It's not, it does
We
not
do
have a
need-
variance,
we
it's
do
in
need to
place
get a
right now,
permit.
that would be up to you guys to determine whether it can stay or
So
not.
it was
checked
built,
it.
sorry, I just wanted to clarify. So it was built in the setback
Oh.
after it was built in the setback, but it wasn't requested as a variance as part of the
That's right.
2022 application?
And the owners have said that they would be more than willing to move it as part of this application, if that is your purview.
What did we approve last time that didn't get built?
The front entry.
And what was that going to look like? That was going to be, how grandiose, I guess?
Okay.
And is that what you are now suggesting as part of this the porch that's going in, or is it?
It's the same exact suggestion, same exact application. It's a small 32 square foot.
So we approved that last time?
You approved it last time.
So really, the difference here is you want to go higher, you want to change the deck and the stairs and the coop and,
Really, the only change is raising the house.
Yeah.
And
what that causes.
And what that
But also the
causes.
deck, you're reducing but expanding.
that's correct. We're reducing the
volume.
setback, or
You're
we're
reducing the
increasing,
setback.
we're increasing the setback of the deck.
Right, but you're also increasing the volume that is in the setback by extending the deck.
Part of it is in the setback and part of it is not. The existing deck
Right, right.
is in the setback.
Okay.
And
Just-
one more time,
Yeah.
why was raising the house not considered in 2022?
I think in 2022, they were trying to do a certain amount to the house from a cost perspective, and basically capping it at 50% substantial improvement. That's what they were doing, and they didn't have to do it. The house raising could come at a later point if it needed to. They got approved for all that, and then they came back to you now. They're coming back to you now for raising the house.
Wait, so how does that work? Do we then reassess the house with the new improvements and then grant?
No, there are no, sorry, in this
Yeah, no,
particular
please
case.
tell me,
In this
okay.
particular case, because we're bringing it up to compliance, because the house will be in compliance, the 50% substantial improvement cap doesn't apply anymore.
It's only if you keep it in the flood zone.
Yeah. They're not,
They
they're,
won't let you do more than 50%.
just to say, from a neighbor perspective again, we have letters of support from 7 Pratt Island, 9 Pratt Island, 8 Pratt Island,
And who owns 8 Pratt Island?
the Houseburgs.
That was nice.
But just to say, all of the most directly affected properties, including the state of Connecticut, support this project.
The piece of the house that's built over the seawall, is that original from 1920?
I believe so, yeah.
What's the condition of it?
Structurally, it's good. I mean, it's fine, but the siding needs to be replaced and the windows need to be replaced.
Gee, what happens if you start to take this thing apart? Even though I understand 2 architects, 2 structural engineers, and the state have said this is doable. You start taking this thing apart and it's not. There's something in there that doesn't support it, or the house starts to fall down.
Honestly, the biggest part of this whole project is not the house, but it's saving an existing tree that's there. There's this beautiful, beautiful tree that's like, basically a part of the house. And I say that from the standpoint, we've had several arborists out there and landscape architects out there too, reviewing this. There's been a lot of preparation, a lot of professionals, a lot of engineering looking at this. I know the town of Darien has been put in positions before with other properties. I get that. But we have made a lot of preparations for this, a lot of structural review of this, and a lot of review in terms of the logistics about how to actually do this. So our most professional word right now to use that we can do this and we can do it viably and it'll be lifted up 5 feet.
What are the logistics of separating a house from a seawall?
Okay.
Do you really want to get into this? Yes.
I'll just show a quick photo of what that could look like then. It's really not much. You've seen houses raised before, right? It's the same process. Basically, everything happens within the existing foundation.
So it's just sitting on the existing seawall, or is the foundation of the house part of the seawall?
The foundation is on top of the seawall. And I'm going to go back to the photo to show you more clearly.
Is there a section of that somewhere?
Yep. But this photo really helps too. Abby, you can talk to that too. So this is the existing seawall right here.
And that foundation just rests right on top of the seawall?
That's correct. These are the existing flood vents that are inadequate and not to code.
And right now, this, inside there is a crawl space that's accessible, there's a little hatch there, so what they're gonna do is basically saw cut. You can see what's stone and what's newer, the concrete above, so they'll saw cut that, and then when they set the beams to lift the house, and then they're gonna have to saw cut all the rest of the
Yeah.
existing foundation walls.
So
It'll
that,
be similar.
that's actually very surprising to me. So that concrete foundation there just sits on top of the rock seawall.
That's right. And all
It doesn't
the
go
new
through, the seawall doesn't butt up against it lower, it just sits on top?
sits on top.
And then you rebuild your foundation, your extended foundation up on top of that seawall?
No.
You're stepping back in?
Yes. That was actually a very critical point for the state as well. Where are the existing piers? The fact that they are back from the mean high water line and back from the seawall.
So then what does that look like after the house is raised? Like if you're on the water, you see just piers and some lattice work or something, or?
Basically, you see.
There's not a big concrete foundation wall there?
No. Well, the only part you're going to see now is the seawall. That's what you're going to see. And you're going to see a breakaway lattice work on top of that, hiding the piers.
So you're going to lift it up and move it back a little.
There's no moving.
It just,
They just will put piers further
Okay.
back than the edge of
Okay.
the seawall where it is.
You don't have to move. The way that you basically do it is, it's actually the simplest thing you can do possibly when the house is in the existing condition. Gets pumped up, cribbage goes underneath, new foundation goes under that, and then the house gets lifted back down on top of the foundation.
I gotta ask the owners a question. I'm a realtor. What was your expectation when you bought this house? Did you think down the road that this was going to be something you were going to have to take on? Or did you think, we'll never have to deal with this? Clearly, whoever built this thought about this at the time. Like, what went through your minds? Yes, I'd love to hear.
Hi, thank you, Abby Hausberg. May it please the board. I'm just trying to understand what your question is.
So
when we
contextually, this happens all the time, that we have situations where people buy a house with certain intentions.
Sure.
They come in front of us and we shoot down what they want to do because there's not a defined hardship. I would say in this case, there is a very defined hardship.
Yep.
But what you're proposing is extreme. I mean, I don't know where we'll vote on it, but I'm just curious to
Yeah.
know, did you think when you bought it, like, it's not going to necessarily weigh into our decision, it's more just information for me going forward, like, how do we keep coming up with these situations?
Yeah, no, and I think that's a fair thing. I think when Will and I purchased this home, we lived in Cedar Gate, and like when you live in Cedar Gate and then you move to Pratt Island, it's like, as one of our neighbors says, it's like going from New Hampshire to Cape Cod. Like, it's a completely different thing. And when we purchased this house, like Will, had his sights set on living on the water, and for years and years has just been tracking property. And this came on, and like we were the first people there, and we immediately put in the offer, and we had, I don't know, hearts in our eyes, and we had like a newborn, and
I totally get that, Abby.
still starting
Everybody
our
makes a
family,
decision
and
in 30
I don't know if we
seconds,
really thought like. really a lot like, what is this going to look like down the road? Where, we just were really excited to offer this to our family. And as we continue to live here and see the way that the water keeps getting higher and higher, and we're since we were last before you, we are in a more financially secure place where we can say, like, before we go on, and now, like, we have started the work on the initial variances that we're very grateful you approved. We did start the work. It's been a bit of a bungle, so things have taken longer. It's either just been supply chain, or our relationships with our vendors have not gone as we had originally planned. So things are progressing, albeit slowly. And during this time, we've thought, wait, before we do this roof and before we do the rest of the stuff, every year it's so hard to get insurance renewed. I mean, every single year we're just like, what do you mean you might not approve our insurance? What are we going to do? And so now we're in a position like, wait a minute, before we do this roof and the siding, and now we have my 9-year-old who says he's going to live with us forever, and this is our forever home, and we've lived in Darien now for 12 years, which is 50% longer than I've ever lived anywhere for my entire life. This is where we're staying for good, and the waters are going to keep getting higher. And I'm an environmentalist and naturalist, and I'm concerned about what the microplastics that go in the ocean from my washing machine, and so the idea of what happens when floodwater gets in here and what's going to go into, all the Fisher-Price little people are all going to be swimming in Long Island Sound for the rest of, perpetuity. So the idea of just being able to take care of this now and then hand this to our children in a way that they can then use it, and then, our grandchildren now's the time to do it.
If we say no, what do you do from here? Do you just go ahead
Cry.
and finish? You cry. But then do you finish what was unfinished? So Jake said there's part of this that's not done.
Right.
You would finish that.
I mean, I think we have to, weigh it's the cost benefit. I mean, there's certain things we like, like the roof is leaking, and so, like, yes, we're going to have to, like, do the roof and stuff. But I think for the benefit of our family as well as neighbors and even the town and the environment, getting this up now is the time to do it. Otherwise, we're kind of, if later we can come before you and ask for a permission or for you to reevaluate, then it's kind of lost time and money, and then who knows what sort of catastrophic events have happened in the meantime.
Great. That was helpful to me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. And if you have, while I'm here, if you have any questions about the chicken coop, like, I'm more than happy. I can start from the very beginning if you want, from the eggs hatching.
We all love
or,
chickens,
like,
but honestly, like, a lot of times what we'll do to grant something is we have to take away something that is not
yeah,
compliant.
we'd be happy to give you our chickens.
Okay.
But, like, happy to move, like, the coop can go, the coop, like, the chickens hatched, and one was special needs, and we had to take care of it, and they were living in our bathroom, and we had a Greenwich Greenwich firefighter who built the coop there just to, like, get the chickens, like, living outside, and, like, it seemed, anyway, it's like a whole long story, but, like, the chicken coop can move, and that's totally fine.
And do you know that, Jake, the coverage of the entire thing, like, even with the chicken coop, are we well under 20%? You
Yes.
said 12% is the number?
12%.
Okay, good. Thank you. Anybody else have questions for Abby, for Jake, for the engineer? Will, did you want to say anything?
Couldn't say better than that.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
well said. Jake, you good?
You guys good?
Well, are there any neighbors that wish to be heard, or, I'm sorry, anybody in the audience who wishes to be heard on this application for 6 Pratt Island? Okay, if that's it, then what we'll do is we'll close the hearing. Now, I know you guys have to get back for your babysitter. We will deliberate tonight. You can watch it on Channel 79. It's riveting television. Or you can find out tomorrow, or Jake can call you,
Yeah,
so.
we took 2 cars, so one
Okay.
can stay and one can go.
Got it. That's great.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Okay, so this concludes the Pratt Island hearing, calendar number 30-2024. We'll deliberate, I'm sorry. Yes, that's correct. We'll deliberate later. Moving on, thank you, Jake. Moving on to calendar number 31-2024, the application of Nicole, is it Conline?
Kenline.
Kenline, I'm sorry. On behalf of 44 Huckleberry Lane. This is to allow for the renovation and conversion of a one-story screened porch into a four-season living space.
Yes. Can I use this?
You can. If you can figure out how to use it, you'll be more impressed than I think you are.
I may figure out how to use this. Oh, there we go. Let's see.
Just remember to state your name and affiliation for the record, please.
Sorry,
Just one more time.
Mark Kenline, 44 Huckleberry Lane. Trying to figure out how to get this going.
Yeah, take a minute to do that, that's fine.
Is it?
It's a crazy night.
Plug it in.
Monday meetings are not ideal.
It just came out there.
Oh, did it?
It fell on the ground.
The cable.
The-
The cable.
Yeah.
So maybe it's supposed to be on the.
I don't know why it's not coming up.
Source, maybe?
It's not touchscreen, I assume, so.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Do you mind, you may be able to take that.
Oh, I might be able
right
to
into
take
your
that?
laptop?
Sorry. thank
Yes,
you.
that's a good call.
Thank you. Why is this not working?
There it goes.
you go.
There we go, sorry. So what we are looking to do, and this is by contractor Steve, he can come in and answer any questions you guys may have. So we are looking to enclose this little screened-in porch area that has been here, this piece here. It's been there since 1959. We purchased the home back in April of 2022, knowing that the home needed some repairs to it. What we essentially just want to do is just enclose the structure where you're not changing it by any means. We're not changing any roof. We're not changing anything to it. I believe these are pictures that I think Woody took.
That's Woody's writing. We recognize that.
And this is, Steve, could you speak to kind of what we're doing here with the plan enclosure?
You have to come up, Steve, I'm sorry. And state your name for the record. And
Hi, I'm Steve Scholes, and what we're doing is we're adding 2 LVLs down underneath the ridge, under the existing ridge, to make it, because they want to have a cathedral ceiling. So the engineer came and we have to put a couple headers in them both ends to support it, post down to it. And that's all we have to do.
Okay. Why are you guys in front of us? What is?
Because it's 7 feet 2 inches into the setback, the existing structure.
7 feet 2 inches in the setback, okay.
And we are putting a porch on it, like a landing down, but that is not in the setback. That's outside the 50-foot setback.
What happens to coverage of the total project when you add that porch to it? Does it exceed 20%?
I doubt it. I don't know.
You doubt it? You can't doubt it. You have to
Well,
know
5 foot by
exactly.
8-foot deck, 40 square feet, I don't think it's going to exceed anything.
Okay.
It's just a landing down to the flagstone patio in the back.
Okay. So,
What's the hardship?
yeah, it's the setback.
No, so we would just kind of want to utilize the square footage of the house that we bought. The screens are in dire need of repair. Somebody could potentially fall, child, person, through it. And we just think enclosing it as well would make it quieter for the neighbors and just kind of have us a little bit more living space for our family. A family of 4, I have 2 daughters, are growing. It's kind of looking at a little bit more space.
This
there.
current structure is in the side yard setback, it's in the rear setback?
Backyard.
It's in the what?
Backyard setback,
Backyard setback. So the backyard setback should be
50 feet.
50 feet, and this is 7.5 feet, so this is...
That's what the survey, that's what your letter to us said. It was 7.2.
Yes,
in
this
the
is
setback.
this is the survey.
Okay. So that red area around it is all that's off, okay.
Here's your setback, you see how it cuts across? It's larger size than 7 foot 2 inches.
And this is 2 acres on?
I think it's 1 acre, because everything around there is all 1 acre. This is 3/4 of an acre this long.
Okay, so it's an undersized lot?
It's in the 2 acre zone.
Okay.
Oh, it is?
It's an undersized
So
lot
it's
in a
an under-
2-acre zone.
Okay, because the whole street behind it is the same way, I think.
Okay.
Do you have any detail on how wide your buildable area actually is?
No, I don't.
Did you look at tearing this off and putting it somewhere else?
Probably my thing.
We always have to ask that.
No,
That deck is a concrete slab poured on 3 steel I-beams.
Okay.
So you'd be cutting through concrete, cutting steel. I don't know how the integrity of it would last after that.
Okay.
Barb, this is the buildable area.
So the total,
The line.
the
of
combined,
footage.
is Kevin, you trying to get at the combined?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
like, we need to have on the record, like, what the hardship is, what's unique about this property. And I've heard, that it's a 2 acre zone and this is a 3/4 acre lot, but struggling to understand, to supplement the record, what is the, I can see the buildable area here, but I can't tell how big it is. I'm trying to supplement the record with what the actual hardships are.
like I said, I think we're just, for us, it's already in need of repair. We had to redo the roof already, that was already there.
We get that, and we understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, and it makes complete sense. Just state law
Okay.
says in order for us to grant a variance from local zoning says you have to be 50 feet, we can say, okay, you don't have to comply with that, but only when in certain conditions. And state law says that there has to be something unusual about your property that is unique to the neighborhood and that it's created a hardship for you. That's the magical thing we're trying to understand so that we can say, okay, yeah, there is a hardship here, so therefore an extra 7 feet is not a big deal. So we're just trying to comply with state laws.
And the hardship can't be, it's way easier just to fix it than it is to move it. Like, unfortunately, that's considered it's a financial strain, but it's not a hardship. The hardship could be like constricting setbacks or
Yeah, the buildable
undersized
area is
lot.
only 20 feet, so with 20 feet, you can't really have a proper sized house, so we need more. So that's the information we're trying to gather. And I can't quite tell how wide your buildable lot is here.
I don't,
Yeah, I looked through all the documents and it's,
I think,
and again, like, is there something about the rear of your property or, I guess that's 50 feet.
Are there wetlands?
Yeah.
there's
wetlands
wetlands behind us.
Where are the wetlands? Do you
On the neighbor's property.
Neighbor's
behind us.
property.
Not on your property, okay. Do you have neighbor support for this?
We sent out the letters to all of the neighbors. We haven't heard anybody, I don't know if you guys have come back with any issues around it.
Do we have anything?
I could probably get some neighbor support letters if needed, but we sent the documents out.
So here's the issue we're going to face. You run the risk of some of us saying, this is not a defined hardship. There's a place they can move that. They may not want to move it, but there is a place within the property line where you can move that porch or adjust it so that it all complies. So, a couple options, and I'm not really supposed to tell you this, but you can roll the dice and see if we approve it. Or you can say, you know what, we'll go back and adjust the drawings, work on our hardship, and come back before you at a later point. If we deny it, they can still go through that same process, right?
They'd have to reapply.
Resubmit, you'd have to reapply at that point.
But the reapply has to be different than what was previously.
Yeah.
You gotta make more time too, I think it's
For 6 months.
6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
Let me ask, are the plans clear or the architectural drawings?
I mean, those plans that you showed up there, we have, but we also have other plans too. So I'm actually not sure.
These are the only plans that matter right here now. The last set you got, the revised plans.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what we got when we got it, but we have
I think
three
the
different
ones you
three different
supplied-
sets of plans. Some are hand drawn, some aren't. So I'm not. They were uploaded. I'm not sure by who, but somebody.
So you could continue the hearing to clarify some things. That'd be one option.
Okay. We could do, that would mean that we wouldn't deliberate tonight. We would get additional clarity. You'd have a chance to come back to the town and talk about the width lot. Maybe get some clarity around the hardship involved. You know, because we are, you know, it's not arbitrary what we do. We have to be able to say on record, like, yeah, there was a clearly defined hardship, so we made an exception. Otherwise, we have to bring everything more into compliance. So, I mean, what you're asking for, tons of people come and ask for this. Can we just finish our porch? It's already there. I mean, what's the big deal? We're making it more safe. It's aesthetically pleasing. We have to come up with a legal reason on record to say, yeah, all those reasons are great, but also there's a hardship on this property. So, do we want to continue this and talk about it more? Do you want to roll the dice and see how we vote?
I don't know.
Continue it.
Continue it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I thought I answered all the questions
You
you
did.
guys sent us.
Well, not, I mean, I don't know what the width of the buildable area is.
That's the only, well, we can see the only other buildable area.
Yeah, no,
Right in front of the garage, in the pool.
no, I'm not saying like where there is area left to build.
To build, right.
What I'm asking is, like, you need to make a case for us as to why your lot is unusual in your neighborhood, and why it being unusual creates this hardship for you. And so you could maybe say, like, the curve of that driveway means that that we only have 15, 20 feet of buildable area, so it's impractical for us to build a reasonably sized house there, but we need like actual numbers. It's not just, oh, it looks like that. And so that's my point, is you need to come back and say to us, here are the 2 or 3 things that make my lot really difficult to build on, that's created a hardship to have a normal sized house. That's why it's shaped a little this way, and that's why the porch is extending into the setback,
Frontage.
and why I need a variance. And we haven't heard enough, I haven't heard enough on the record articulating what those hardships are.
Sometimes it's slope, sometimes it's drainage, sometimes it's,
Right, like the previous people, they came up and said there's a driveway coming through. There is, our buildable area is only, you remember,
Their whole thing's a hardship.
Their buildable area is, it's 18 feet wide for 70 feet of the property. Like, that's, okay, that's a problem, so you should get a variance from zoning because of that. And we don't have those statistics here.
Okay. So the options would be to either just kind of continue and roll the dice, or come back and start saying, and
Yeah, and give us some more of that detail, yeah.
Yeah, and you can work with staff, they'll help you do that, to define it more clearly, so when you come back in front of us, the case is stronger.
okay, I think, I mean, I don't want to roll the dice on it. It's something like I want to properly do and make sure that
Okay,
I understand a little bit better what you guys are.
Okay.
got it. Thanks, guys.
Thank
you.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing you again.
Yep.
So we
So,
continued to March 19th.
okay, so you'll be continued to March 19th.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So we're going to continue calendar number, thank you, 31. All right. Next up is calendar number 2-2025, the application of Britton and Vanessa Costa, on behalf of 20 Elm Street. And this is to allow the construction of a covered front porch, front and rear 2-story additions. If we haven't adequately scared you yet, then
I enjoyed my last visit. I wanted to come back.
I think I was on your last visit.
You are. With many familiar faces. And I have some of my favorite quotes from that meeting because we revised the plan, and that's why we're back. And so we think we actually addressed the feedback that you gave. But
Okay. Can you state your name for the record again, please?
So for the record, my name is Britton Costa. My wife and I have owned 20 Elm Street since August of 2017. We're joined by Louis De Baradino, the architect who's worked with us on the project. Appreciate you hearing the application, particularly on a night which was not an originally scheduled meeting. We discussed this project last year when we were waiting on the birth of our 3rd child. She is the catalyst for needing to expand our Cape. She was born a few weeks after the meeting, and so we used the newborn time to really think and say, do we want to do one more cut of the design? And so we did. And so we went back with the feedback that you all gave and came up with a new plan. We let the previous variance, which was approved, expire, and coming back as we're ready to move forward at this point.
Mr. Costa, did you do any of the work that we approved that
No.
first time? Okay, got it,
Change diapers.
got it.
My presentation is going to hit on 3 factors. 1, just why do we think it's a reasonable variance on its own merits. 2, why it's better than the previous already approved plan. And 3, understanding the dynamic right now between the ZBA and the ZEO, why you can have some assurances that this project doesn't have the characteristics of the projects that have given you some agita. So our hardship is fairly straightforward. We have a non-conforming lot. Our entire neighborhood is zoned for 1/3 of an acre. Very few lots are actually 1/3 of an acre. So you could argue this should be a 1/5 of an acre zoning, but it's not. Our project meets all coverage maximums, so we're beneath. We meet all minimum setbacks. And what this is about is from which side do we apply the 10-foot side setback and the 15-foot side setback. There are 3 elements of the project. The first is to remove a 2.5-car detached garage, the mudroom, and the deck. Take that coverage and build a front addition and a rear addition. And the way I'll explain the minimum adjustment is to show you how we came up with this plan rather than all the plans that we rejected.
I love it. You're doing great so far.
So I've highlighted the current home. This is this weekend, A, B, C, D, and you can see the similar points on the design. Let's start with point A. So this is what today is our mudroom, and in the future will be the bump out so that our kitchen can naturally extend forward. So we have very natural lines within the kitchen. If we move up to B and C, you can see that we're following the lines of the dormers, which were built in 2011. And looking down between C and D, you can see it steps in. And the reason for that is we wanted to ensure that the width, including the bump out and our equipment, did not exceed the maximum 25 feet. And we wanted to preserve the window on the first floor. And I point that out to really show the spirit of this application was the minimum adjustment. And we debated, should we just try to come straight forward, and that would be a 26-foot wide section. The space is 25 feet. We said, no, let's just go with the minimum adjustment, which is from which side do we measure. If we move back to the front is a 22-foot by 19-foot addition that touches the existing wall but does not come into it. This is a key difference from the previous design. And I'll come back to that later when we talk about structure preservation. This front addition creates 2 conforming parking spots and allows us to extend the bedroom that's above into that space. Now, one comment that we did want to bring up in our submitted materials, and I think it's important in light of the first presentation that you heard today, is that this design was done such that it can be phased. The rear addition and the front additions can be done separately, and we asked Louis to put that in, just recognizing the volatility in the material and labor markets, and so we wanted the ability to phase this project if we needed to. And I raise that here now because we didn't want there to be any misunderstandings about what our intentions are. Our intention is to break grounds on both spots as soon as possible, but we did build this flexibility if we need it. Now we can look at the plan versus what you previously saw. The green highlights are the plan that was approved last year. On the bottom left, you can see the feedback from some of the members here. And if I had to summarize it, it was that this was a really big project and was at the minimum adjustment.
But you still got approval.
We did. We've brought down the project. It's 20% smaller in terms of livable square footage. It's 25% shorter. It retains the Cape aesthetic that's common in the neighborhood. And any area where we were within the setback, we're actually further, or no worse, or further away from the setback line. So we've improved, if not met, the same levels. And then lastly, we want to highlight how this plan compares to the regulations, to our existing home, to the previously approved plan, and to the variance. And we think it really beats on every element. Now there's one section I haven't read, the existing home, and it was what we talked about the last time at the high water table and the issues that we have with drainage. So this plan today, what it allows us to do by moving the garage to the front, a site engineer has been out and confirmed that the front yard soil is much more suitable for a foundation, much lower water table. It then opens up 50% of our yard for stormwater retention and Coltech systems, and allows us to remove 70% of the driveway. So we think it makes a significant improvement for the house, for us and for our neighbors.
Did you submit an engineering survey with this?
An engineering survey?
Did you do any, what plans have we seen for?
We have not formalized the stormwater plans yet.
Okay.
We have engaged the engineer. They're working on it.
Okay.
But since it wasn't necessary for this application, we were trying to phase our expenditures with all the
You mentioned
experts.
Coltex. I thought you had already done something to discuss water runoff.
They've been out to the site and we've been talking about where we would put things and
Okay.
whether the front yard's suitable in the backyard and whether we'd have to raise some of the soil potentially.
Good.
So the last part that I wanted to hit on and then answer any of your questions is giving you some comfort to the extent that we can that our project won't be one of the ones that gives you a headache. There's 5 main reasons. I think the first 3 all work together. The first is that a project was done in 2011 that essentially rebuilt the entire second story. If there were going to be unknown issues, hey, we didn't know this until we opened the walls or the foundation's crumbling, I think that would have been identified. The second is that we're not impacting the home as it stands today. So I mentioned the front garage will be compliant. Each spot's 9 by 18, but it's a little short. And we intentionally said, let's have it be short so that we don't have to come into the house and now have to think about the structural support of that front wall. What does it mean for the foundation? Let's really limit how much we're impacting a home that's 75 years old. 77, excuse me. So the only major change to a structural wall will be in the back of the house where that mudroom bump out stands today and the kitchen is, where we'll be extending into the kitchen. Third reason, a structural engineer has been out. They did a walkthrough. It's not the completion of their work, but what is important is that they can see all of the foundation that we're going to be working with. So where we understand there's an existing project and they couldn't see the foundation under a similar mudroom, we're not using any of those foundations. They can see everything that we're working with. The last major one is that there is really no potential for unapproved alterations. There's no attic here where we're calling it storage and it eventually becomes livable space. Same for the foundation. We're going to have a crawl space, and the attic is very short and just meant for the HVAC equipment.
There's no height variance proposed, right?
No, we're 7 feet below the height maximum.
Got it.
And we are happy to take any questions.
Just to confirm, your lot width is 50 feet, but it's required 80 feet?
Correct.
And so therefore your buildable area is about 20 feet, 5 feet wide all the way up?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
We're just continuing the side where we are 10 feet. We just want to stay 10 feet on that side.
Okay.
And the side of the existing home where we're non-conforming is where we actually apply the larger setback.
Well, isn't on the side where you're maintaining the 10, isn't there one place where you're going down to 8.3 feet? That's like for utility, no?
That would be on the utilities will be on the western side, which is where we would be applying the 15 feet, and they would be complying with that 15
Woody,
feet.
what is this here?
I think it's the porch, right?
Is there not a porch on the west side that would be?
Oh,
on
I'm
the
sorry,
side?
in the front of the home.
Yeah.
Correct. In the front of the home where the front door is, there would be a small covering, and a portion of that
Yeah,
would be
what is
within the
that?
setback. That would be
8.3.
here,
Yeah,
this section. I apologize.
so there's a side door there?
This is the front of the home.
Oh, I see.
So we would be, our front door today is here. We're shifting it here where our window stands today, aligning with
So that front
this
door
dormer.
is sort of to the left side of the center of the house?
That's correct. We picked the location to align with this dormer, and a variance was given for that same portion of that dormer.
And that's
when
a
it was
garage
installed.
in the front, right?
Correct, coming
So it's a
forward.
driveway garage, and then the driveway that was on the right side of that, on the west side of that, the east side of the house, is 70% of that's removed, and then in the back it's culverts or whatever, and
That's right, the
drainage system and whatever.
driveway today goes behind the house.
Okay.
It goes from end to end, so
Yeah.
all of that would come out.
Okay.
It sounds like it's improved parking, right? You can get 2 garage spaces, 2 driveway spaces. Okay,
But the driveway spaces would be in the front setback.
yes. Okay.
If this doesn't get approved, can you still build the previous approved one?
It is expired.
That's expired. So why didn't you build that one? Excuse me, sorry.
Our daughter was born in June and it expired in November. And when we decided, are we going to move out with the newborn, we said no. And then when we looked at the plans and said, do we want to do one more cut of this? We did. And I think it's a little tough to see, but this middle section, the previously approved plans, it was very tall on the right-hand side.
I remember.
And Lewis did a great job, and we just really like the aesthetics of the current plan.
Did Lewis do the first set of drawings for us?
We had worked with the design-build contractor.
Ah. Anybody else? Neighbor approval on this?
We've spoken verbally to anyone's property who touches it, except for Allen O'Neill, because they're managed by Imagineers.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Woody?
I think it might, can you go back to your elevate, maybe your front elevation? Yeah. I think this was helpful where the red highlighting is the portion of the proposed volume in the setback compared
It's
to the.
a little under 4, I mean, a little over 4 feet, right? That's 4.5
Something
feet
like
there,
that.
yeah.
On the side, there's quite a bit. Do you have the side elevation somewhere in the back? Maybe. There it is.
So this is the
It's the whole length, right?
east side. So this is where the driveway cuts today. And then if we, yeah, you can see it from the rear, we're not impacting the setbacks.
And then that side view, if you could, yeah. So the central part of the cape, what you're telling us is that's staying as is.
Correct.
Roof all the way down?
So this roof will be coming over it. Lewis, correct me if I'm wrong. The intent is to go over, but if the contractor says, hey, we may need to just build a new roof instead of on top of the existing roof, that hasn't been answered yet. So this will, right now we have, this will come out over, you can see this portion here of the existing roof. When this starts going back, it will sort of come over the existing roof and the existing dormer that we have.
Where it ties into the main house?
We'll be coming over this, right? So we'll be coming over it. And what I was saying was, I don't know if it's been answered, whether when this roof's coming like this, if it will be literally on top of that, or that section of the roof will be replaced.
And remind me what you said about the mechanicals. They're all within, are they marked on the plans?
They are. Oops. Actually, I'll move to. Sorry. They're all here.
You can see here also.
Yeah, so they're right on the line, but
Yeah, but they're not in the setback.
Yeah.
Not in the setback, and for what it's worth, last year we installed 20 arborvitaes already in there because we wanted them to be able to take their roots before we start construction. It becomes a mess and we're not there and not able to water it. So we already have 20 that are 6 feet tall at the fence line, and give them a year or two, they'll be starting to give our neighbors privacy.
Good?
Yeah.
All right.
Gianna?
I'm good.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Is there anybody else that wishes to be heard on this application? Okay, that will officially close 20 Elm Street. We'll move on to our last hearing of the night. It's calendar number 3-2025, the application of Gisela Chavez to allow the construction of a one-story addition with roof deck to the main dwelling at 255 Tokenique Road. And as a reminder, just please state your name for the record.
Good evening, I'm Christopher Hall from CH Architecture. Here about 255 Tokenique Road. We're asking for permission to build a one-story addition off the left side of the house. We're here for you because this property has 2 single-family residences on it, which are owned in a condominium setup. The other owner has given a letter of recommendation for this, which is in the packet. But everything we're proposing conforms with setbacks, height. We're well under coverage. We're at 10.5% out of 20. Height-wise, we're at 20.7 out of 30. And in fact, this is just a one-story addition. You see here on the photos, this is the house we're here for. This is the other dwelling. This is the house of the dwelling. Over on this side where this existing patio is where we want to do the addition. And it's over here. That's where the addition's going to go. Here. We'll just have a little stone step out here, spiral stair up to the upper level. Again, all these are inside the setback, so we're not asking for any variance on that. This is the elevation looking from where that patio was. This is the back side. This is the street side elevation and the other side. It's not actually visible at all from the street. As you can see here, it's actually blocked all by trees. But I can certainly answer any questions if you have them.
Do you know the history of the ownership here and how it got, I'm going to use the word subdivided, even though it was really done by condominium formation and how that all happened?
This is the owner here. I will allow her to answer those questions.
Hi, my name is Gisela Chavez. I am the owner. I bought the property in 2020 from Callie Sullivan. She actually appeared before you sometime in 2018, and she got the approval to renovate the 2 properties. She owned both at that time. And
well, it was one property with 2 buildings on it.
so the unique setup is that it has a grandfathered legal 2 residence use property.
So just want to understand, when she bought it, when she owned it for you and came to us, it was because it predated zoning or whatever, it was a grandfather to...
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and it was originally a 1 main house, and then the barn has 2 apartments. So it was from 3 residents.
Good.
She reduced the nonconformity to a 2.
Okay.
So now it's just 2 owners. And then at some point, there was a condominium type setup that was created that allowed for 2 owners of each unit.
Got it. And Woody, is that accurate insofar as what the records show, that this was a non-conforming but legal 2 two-family lot?
Certainly when Ms. Sullivan proposed the renovations, it had been used for two separate
Okay,
residences.
I was worried that
decades, I
it was
believe.
two structures on one property, and she gamed the system and created a condo structure to get around subdividing. But no, you're saying it has been, since zoning prohibited two-family homes, operated as two-family homes. in all
Yeah,
the time.
yeah. In fact, it was kind of shaky what was in the barn, whether there were 2 apartments in it or 3 or how many people.
But there was a residential use in that.
Definitely.
Okay.
And let me also add that there was a question about parking. And Ms. Sullivan did quite a bit of work to establish a good parking area near what I call the barn structure, as opposed to the driveway going up.
And reduced, I guess, from a three-family to a two-family.
Yeah.
Right.
So she was a good
Essentially.
actor, not a bad actor, which is what I thought was going on.
So the only reason you were in front of us
Is because of the existing nonconformity
Got
that.
it. Okay. Anything?
I don't have any questions.
Nope.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard on this application? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So it's 8:45, that concludes our hearings for the evening. So what we'll do now is move into the deliberation stage, and we'll just follow along in the order unless anybody has a reason not to do that. I mean, we're probably going to start with the most challenging one. Let's talk about Pratt. Okay, so just so the audience understands, you cannot make any comments during deliberation, but you're welcome to stay and listen. You want to start with Pratt?
Sure, I mean, I was on the board that approved this in the first time, and I can sense your hesitation about it, but the truth of the matter is, if at the time, and I guess it was 2022, the applicants came before us, and as part of their request was, we want to raise the height of the house to above the VE level and make these other relatively minor changes, I think we would have said yes, because it is one of our defining missions to make sure the town is safer and people are safer in their homes. So I don't have an issue with it at all, because we are promoting one of the things we want to promote, which is getting the houses into a safe spot. And they have done it in a thoughtful way that I think has the most minimal impact, and reducing the dormers so that it's only 1.3 feet above the height limit, and their other requests only being basically cosmetic, which is the staircase and the deck. So I don't have any issue, and I think there's clear hardship in the record, but we don't even need it because it's for safety purposes, but there is hardship nonetheless in terms of the size of the lot and the
Undersized
driveway
lot,
through it and the
40-foot
buildable
setback,
area,
yep.
et cetera. So having said all that, I have no issue with any of it except for the dopey chicken coop, which sounds like the applicant will be very happy for us to force them to put the chickens out of there. It's like I live with a dog that I'm allergic to, and if someone was like, oh, the dog's gotta go, they go, oh, that's too bad.
That's
My kids would be upset. So,
Okay.
I have no issue with it, except I think we should deny us to the chicken coop.
Okay?
Kevin, I'm just since I wasn't involved before, I don't understand, so there was no discussion back then about moving the house off the ceiling?
My recollection was not properly refreshed by reading the few notes.
I know.
So I don't recall at the time whether it was or was not. But if it was, I presume we would have got the same answer, which is to say it's really hard to move the house back. And the truth of the matter is, if you move it back, you're setting it back from the water, which maybe is aesthetically better, and maybe it accomplishes some things, but you're not really helping with the variance for being in the setback, because you're just pushing nonconformance further to the south, as opposed to it being in the north. Because there, if you look at the plans, they're already at the edge of the setback, put aside the new garage area they're building. So you're just gonna push that into the southern setback more. So.
But was there any discussion about like rebuilding and building in?
I don't recall. Probably.
Not a lot. Wilder presented, and we thought overall there were more, I'm quoting myself, there were more pluses than negatives to it. We liked the safety aspect of it, they were capping the renovation at the 388,000.
The dormer trick is creative.
Yeah.
To bring the overall height down. I thought that was very creative.
I mean, I'm actually surprised we did pass. I shouldn't say that because I was on the hearing, but
I'm surprised by this one. I mean, I am. And not much surprises me. So,
what surprises you?
well, the fact that it's sitting on the seawall and we're continuing to let it sit on the seawall, when it seems like to me what I would have thought when I looked at this, and then I was kind of surprised when I saw that it had already been approved in 2022, I would have thought that we would have said, no, you need to rebuild it. We'll still give you a variance, right? Clearly, you're going to need a variance to build, but maybe move it back out of the VE zone, or maybe you don't get quite out of the VE zone. But it just seems strange to me that we didn't require that consideration. It seems like it came in as potentially, we're doing some small renovations, and so we don't want to spend that much, and so we gave them the variance because it's like, oh, it's just cosmetic, and we're going to keep it where it is, and now it seems like that's different.
Yeah, I'd say a couple of things. One is you're right that the first time they were here, there was relatively minor requests, raise that house a little bit, raise the
the
front
entry,
porch and the utilities. And now it's a more significant project with more significant costs. And what I'd say is, right now it's resting on the seawall, and that's not going to be the case anymore. It's going to be above the seawall, and the pillars are going to be inside the seawall. Secondly is state DEC approved it and liked it and obviously thinks it's an improvement on where things are. And third, the neighbors don't seem to object. So really, the only thing my thought would be, the view from the shore then, if you're out boating or whatever, and you got the lattice there. So I think I'm not sure I don't know how difficult it is or practical it is to say, raise it and pull it back 10 feet. I don't know how
well, I think that,
is.
I guess I'm kind of following off of what Barb said during the meeting. It's like, well, what if when they start to move it, things start to fall apart?
Yeah.
And then now we've granted a variance that allows them basically to keep it exactly where it is, where we wouldn't do that, I think, in like a world where you said, well, we're going to spend this much, right? I know cost is not the consideration. We would say, no, go back to the drawing board and design something that fits, like that requires less of a variance, less, put more in the buildable area and keep as much of it out of the setbacks as you can.
I get that. I just think the buildable area is minimal anyway, so they're going to have a lot in the setback regardless. It's really, I think, a question of how close it is to the water, really, I think, and whether it makes sense for an applicant who wants to put their house in a safer position to say, not good enough, we also want you to pull it back 10 feet. And I don't know enough about it to know how big an ask that is.
I think my bigger concern is more where Barb went with it, which is when they start to move it, if something goes wrong and then they say, oh, it wasn't salvageable,
right,
but now we have the approval to basically build.
And here's where we're screwed. I mean, pardon the expression, but this is what this whole issue is with the zoning enforcement. The right thing to do is if they start to move it and the foundation is crumbled or there's an issue or safety comes into play, they're supposed to stop, come back to us, but they don't. They just move forward, and then the ZEO has the power to grant a CO, and we have done a disservice to the homeowner, the neighbors, the entire process. That does concern me.
I agree, but my take on it would be, to put it bluntly, if the zoning enforcement officer is not doing his job, the applicant shouldn't necessarily be punished. Like, we should still have a stipulation or whatever else that if a substantial portion of the house needs to be replaced as opposed to raised, then they do not have the authority to do so, and they have to come to us, and we have to deal with any ZEO issues outside of, a conversation with a specific applicant would be my thought on it.
Okay.
I hear you. I think, and I haven't been around for as long, so I will defer because
No, don't defer,
I don't have the same level of
Sometimes
experience.
Kevin's wrong.
But my thought is that just from the few that I've seen that were historic, that were trying to be raised, it just seems like those are the ones that become problematic, right? Where it's, I mean,
It's a 1920s home.
we end up in an unfortunate situation, and it becomes very complicated for everyone. So that's, I will stop with that, but
Janet,
that's
you're
my,
right. I mean, there
that's
have
my
been
reservation about this.
In the years I've been on this, there were times that we denied an application and the applicant has come back to us and been like, thank God. We moved the house, it was better all around, you know.
100%.
So I am aware of that. I'm aware of what we're discussing. John?
The chicken coop's gotta go.
Gone.
Look, I'm concerned about, there's definitive hardship. I'm concerned about saying no to raising it out of the floodplain. Like that's got a lot of weight for me, right? They need to get it, they don't need to, but, I don't know.
I think our hands are kind of tied. Like if we hadn't approved this in the first place, maybe we would have looked at this differently.
But if they came here and said, we want to add a dormer over here, and no, that's
Yeah.
it's not
But to
not
Kevin's point,
necessary.
like, they're making it more safe, they're bringing it more into
Yeah.
compliance. There are no neighbor issues. I mean, I guess, I feel like we're kind of, like, if we're just looking at it purely on its merits, it is an improvement. It's an improvement. Matt?
I agree. I think that if we were to force them to build in the buildable area, it's tight, you're going to impact neighbors on the south side if you try to move it further away from the seawall. I don't have any problems with the chicken coop.
You're approving the chicken coop?
I mean, I'll let you guys figure that one out. I like chickens, but yeah, and I think too the state's also approving it.
That kind of blew my mind.
Yeah.
They've done their homework
So-
and, yeah, I was pleased with that. How do we define, to your point about stipulation? So let's say they start to move this thing and it does fall apart. This is the gray line where we get into, where it becomes then a judgment call. Like, John, you're the builder. How do we define that?
I mean, it doesn't matter. Because whenever, we've used the same stipulation all the time, and it doesn't
doesn't
matter.
hold up.
Old Stone, it just doesn't, it just keeps going. I
Like-
think the other, different topic, but the other part of it is making sure that the drawings that get ultimately approved in the building department
Right.
match what is stipulated or agreed to here, right? That could solve some of the problems, but that's
Yeah.
not for this.
But to Kevin's point, if the other half of this is not doing their job, then that's not on us, that's on the
Yeah.
applicant.
And that failure to do the job may not continue in perpetuity, so I still think it makes sense to have a stipulation that if any substantial portion of the house that is not shown in these approved plans, it needs to be changed, that they have to come back.
Can you articulate what you've seen in the plans that's going to be preserved of this structure?
This is what I don't know how to do.
Well, the whole thing.
Yeah, I thought the whole thing was.
The whole thing.
Preserved.
They're raising it.
So the floor, the entire floor structure
Right.
They're keeping the foundation
is going to stay.
That's
No,
they're cutting the
foundation's
foundation.
being
and they're adding the
removed and
steel.
then a new foundation. So all the walls, roof,
Yeah.
they're cutting out the dormers.
Yeah.
And everything else stays.
Right.
So from
And if
the
any
stipulation-
substantial portion, anything more than a de minimis portion of the house, of the structure, changes beyond what's shown in the plans, which are basically the dormers and the deck area, then they need to come back to the board for approval. Because so the idea being, if it does start to fall apart and they have to put it in a new house, we're gonna say it's gotta go somewhere else.
Right.
Well, they have a deck on the back of the house now. Narrow, but
Right.
essentially like a walkway. It's a little shaky whether that's going to be repaired or reinforced or kept as is.
Well, the coverage wasn't an issue, right?
12%.
No, coverage isn't an issue, it's just that this is sitting right on the water in the velocity zone. That's the other thing I wanted to point out, that one of the issues here is this thing's in the velocity zone, and it shouldn't be. It's not supposed, structures aren't supposed to be there. So that's a significant variance if you allow its reconstruction. It does mean a little bit of a higher house too, because it's in the velocity zone.
Wait, I don't understand that. What do you mean?
You're giving a height variance.
He's saying there's no world in which we should approve something in a high velocity zone.
Didn't we do this?
We did.
Haven't we done this all over?
We do.
The road and back?
No.
What do you mean?
Not in the velocity zone.
What's the difference then? I don't understand.
It's
what
the
difference
high
is.
dynamic wave action pressures that break apart buildings, so they have to have different kind of foundation. And the AE zone, which is back from this shoreline.
That's typically what we're dealing with.
Have
is
we
the
never
80.
given a variance in the high velocity?
I've been on one.
We have done it before.
I don't know.
It was a pool that was in the area, and it was, I want to say it was Contentment Island.
That's a pool versus a
It was a
house.
pool, and we had a really hard time deciding on it, even though it was just a pool. We made them.
This is the main part of
I don't know.
Yeah. So, anyway.
I mean,
Is the high velocity zone, poor choice of words, higher than?
Yes.
It's
The required
Because the
floor
average-
elevation and required lower structural members are at least a foot higher. There's actually a 2-foot difference in that.
But they're meeting that.
Pardon?
In order to meet that, I guess that's probably the other foot or so that they go
Right.
into the.
So that's what meets the high velocity. They're going up 17 versus 16
That is correct.
17 versus 15, I believe it is.
versus
but
50.
There's a difference in the way the structure's done. The point is there's at least a foot difference. And to get it out of the velocity zone would mean a move of significant amount, like 28 feet or something.
Yeah.
But what if this back deck, what if it gets rebuilt?
The back deck on the page left side?
It's,
I kind of feel like that's up to
across
them.
most
Like,
of
I
it.
mean, if they, I think this is a bad financial investment for many reasons, but that's up to the homeowner. I mean, I guess if the deck gets destroyed as part of, I mean, am I off on this?
Woody's point is if we make stipulation that there can't be anything but a de minimis change in the
Does that include the
plans,
deck?
does that include the deck?
I don't care about the deck. Should I care about the deck? What do you think?
I don't care, feels wrong.
I'm more concerned about how we're defining minimal. Like, is it a third, is it a half?
No, we're
I
saying
guess-
de minimis, which is anything more than de minimis, which is anything of any significance, which is why I would say the deck, and I guess what I would say on the deck is, aside from incidental repairs to ensure the stability of the deck.
That basically gives them a green light to rebuild it. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about this.
No, I know you're talking over here,
Right
there's the
along
deck,
there.
yeah, somewhere over here.
Looks like a walkway of some kind.
Woody, what deck are you talking about? Are you talking about the one by the tree they're trying to save?
No,
No,
the
behind
one
that.
that's on the shoreline. It's right over the seawall, basically.
I guess-
Deck and building.
I mean, I guess if the deck gets damaged, they shouldn't be allowed to rebuild the deck. Is that what you would say? Build that into the stipulation?
Yeah, what do you expect to be preserved?
I am personally not concerned with the deck.
You know,
Okay. Is anyone else concerned about the deck?
No, not,
Okay.
not relative to the, no.
So I'm glad you raised it. I think that's a good point, but you're good with this?
Yeah.
So, okay, so I guess, have we deliberated enough? Do we all feel like we've discussed this adequately?
I have, yeah.
I'm good, yeah.
I don't,
Can you say again what the stipulation would be?
Yeah, so the stipulations we just, go ahead.
no, I can,
Stipulations would be that if a significant portion of the home, which Kevin is defining as, use the word de minimis.
so, yeah, anything, if there's any, so I guess I'm gonna make a motion to approve.
Yeah, let's start with that.
With the following stipulation, that if any portion of the home is altered in any way that is not shown on the plans, other than of a de minimis amount, then they have to come back to the zoning board of appeals for approval of their plans or their intention or what they want to build. The one exception being a reconstruction of the deck will be deemed a de minimis will be deemed a de minimis adjustment to the plans.
And I will second this motion with the addition of the stipulation to remove,
Sorry, yeah.
remove the chicken coop.
Yes, right. And denying the chicken coop.
Denying the chicken coop. So with that motion, with those
Is that everything on there?
two stipulations. we're
Did they
moving-
allow the other variants to expire? Or do we have to do anything about the front entry?
No?
And the height, by the way, would be 31.3. We have 32.3 on here because there was some confusion over the structure at one point and how tall this thing was actually going to be. But they're committed now to 31.3.
Okay.
Is that what the plans show?
I think so.
Okay, so that's what they said, so we're approving
Okay,
this to
that's what it is, 31.3, okay? So I will
But
second,
isn't the porch is on these drawings too, or no?
yeah,
You can see it in the back. It says deck, building.
No, the
project.
front.
That's what we were saying, did
Oh,
they
yeah,
need that
yeah,
again?
the roofed entry.
Is that, do they need that again?
I think they're, yeah, that's the
So
part
then
they
we
never
need to throw in
finished.
our typical can enclose it,
5x7 maximum dimension.
right? We gotta just make sure that, not that I think.
Stipulate
they
that
were-
the front entryway
planning on
remains
enclosing
per
that,
the
but-
initial plans, not enclosed, and no larger than the 5x7.
Oh, it's much larger than 5 by 8.
What did we approve? What is it?
Well, we approved like an enclosed foyer, I'll call it. And also, I think it's a full width covered porch.
We
Take
did?
a look.
I'd have to tear this apart to see what we originally approved.
Well, what's on this design, I guess?
Wait, so wait, this doesn't, then why is it back, if it's already approved, why is it on this one too? I don't
Because they didn't
understand.
execute it, and the variance expired to allow it previously.
No, but I agree with John. Why isn't it on there? Isn't that,
No, it's on the drawings.
It's in the notice.
Yeah, it's in the notice on the
Right.
drawings. I didn't realize how they kind of picked and choose what to, is that the word? Is that it? Pick and chose?
I see in the
Jesus.
previous notes, it's a 33
Uh,
square foot foyer.
What things to execute and what not to.
Are we pausing on this? Are we worried
So I
about
don't
this?
think, yeah, I don't think you need a stipulation on not enclosing, because this is way bigger than the typical 5 by 8 in front of a house.
I don't think we messed with this one. That was part of the original plan. That's not what they were here. That's not why they're in front of us this time.
That's part of why they're here.
It's one item of
But it was,
many.
but it was approved.
We had previously approved it, it's now expired, and that's part of what they're now requesting.
Yeah.
So would you guys argue that we should be dialing that back?
Again, I don't feel strongly, there's a hardship here, it's minor in the front of the house.
It's hidden.
Like, when
behind
we.
two pieces of the
Yeah.
house.
In the notes, it talks about safety, that it enclosed and it provided a safe entry.
Yeah, I
Good?
don't have any.
Nothing? We're good? Okay, so Kevin's made a motion. There are two stipulations, hold on, there are two stipulations, make sure chicken coop and minimus, if there's any,
Yeah,
de
anything
minimis.
other-
I've
anything
never heard
other
this
than
word,
de
de minimis.
minimis.
De minimis, it's fantastic. Okay, other than the de minimis.
I got most of the words anyway, so.
Okay, I will second Kevin's motion to approve. All in favor? All denied? That's 4-1, it passes. Congratulations. Okay? Good. And thank you for grabbing this, Jana, that was smart, the previous notes. All right, so next up, 44 Huckleberry, just to remind us, we're going to continue that hearing to March 19th, Woody, is the date? Okay. 20 Elm Street. 20 Elm Street is Britton Costa to allow the construction of the front porch, the front and rear story additions, the significant scale back in options, self-scale back. Jana, you want to start?
I wasn't involved in the first one, so I mean, my take on version 2.0 is that it seems better than version 1.0. I think it seems reasonable.
Pardon me? Seems what?
Seems reasonable.
Reasonable.
Don?
Yeah, look, I think that's exactly what, I mean, I didn't know how I was gonna vote. I was the no vote last time, I remember.
Do you remember why you were?
At least I think I was, because I just thought it was too big. It wasn't the minimal adjustment necessary.
Right.
And then it passed, and then I guess, I don't know, pricing or whatever, it was, so, I mean, that's exactly what I think you hope for when people come with these big unreasonable, and then
Right.
they get told no, and they come back with that. It's clearly hardship for that property, and I mean, it's, when you look at the, what was it, green versus red on what they scaled back, it's pretty significant,
Mhm.
so, I mean, it's definitively an improvement, and good enough for me at this point to be okay with it.
Any stipulations you're worried about?
Let's see, what's this one?
We could think about that.
Yeah.
Matt, what are you thinking?
No issues. If you voted no, I guess I voted yes on that one. So, yeah, it seems
I
like.
think you told me I was unreasonable for not approving that.
I probably yelled at you.
That sounds right.
No, yeah, I think it's, yeah, it seems like, and you know, they came back and did an even better job. And it seems like they genuinely like the new design better too, so I feel like, and they're doing it in the way they want to do it, great presentation.
I agree on the great presentation. I
Yeah.
mean, he should give
Excellent-
lessons to
excellent
people as to how to
presentation
present to the zoning board.
That's how you do
I mean,
it.
Right.
the one before him has like 12 hardships. Like, just name one of them, and we don't have to. You don't need to come back. This guy's got a PowerPoint.
The
with, like,
hardship is, yes. Kevin, what do you think?
You know, I mean, clear hardship, that 50-foot lot in an 80-foot required zone. It's a third acre zone. The buildable area is only 25 feet. And the width of the house that they're suggesting is 27, 28 feet. That seems minimal and reasonable and clearly a hardship. And in the broader context of the neighborhood, they are giving back by taking out 70% of the driveway and going to put in planting and help deal with flooding in the area. So it seems pretty clear cut to me.
I also love, and from my standpoint, it's safe. He made a comment about, look, we did this addition before and it was fine. So I don't think there's any surprises with this project. I thought the presentation was fantastic. I see two clear hardships, the undersized lot, the lot width. I think it's everything we look for in a project if we need to be armed to approve a variance. So, with that said, does anyone want to make a motion?
Make a motion
What's your motion?
to approve.
To approve. Second?
I'll second.
Jana? All in favor?
Do we need any?
Stipulation.
Do we need any stipulations here?
No,
There's
I'm
nothing?
sorry, I don't know what to say. I don't have any.
think so.
You're comfortable with what they're going to preserve?
Yeah, well, they've already
The
put in,
applicant clearly made a point of addressing that.
with what they're going to preserve. Well, he talked about he's already put in some landscaping.
I mean, of the structure.
Of the existing structure, yeah.
I got to go to our builder, John, on this. John?
I'm good. I'm
I
good.
think we're good.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor? 5-0. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you for scaling it back on your own without being lectured by the board. I love that. Okay, finally, calendar number 3-2025, Ms. Chavez, to allow the construction of the one-story addition with roof deck to the main dwelling at 255 Tokenique Road. I don't even think she should be here, really. I mean, I think it's, the hardship is that there's a predated, grandfathered, what do I call it?
Non-conforming
Situation.
legal use.
So a non-conforming legal use.
I mean, the way I was thinking about that is that, you do have something that's non-conforming, so it gives us the opportunity to kind of check in to make sure that whatever is being done.
I love that,
Right,
yeah.
so I see some validity for
Yeah,
why,
agreed.
but in terms of the proposed work, it seems reasonable to me. This doesn't seem like an egregious ask, and I don't even know that we have, I mean, it's not asking for a variance.
Right.
And there's, there's not neighbor support, but there's not neighbor objection that's been recorded, and it doesn't seem like anyone can really even see it, so I don't have any objections to it.
Good. Cal?
Good.
All set.
You good?
They have good organized parking. That's one of the things that we try to look at if somebody's expanding, there's 2 residence use. Is there enough room without bothering neighbors for this extra household with its extra vehicles and activity and all that? It seems like a pretty
Callie took care of that in 20.
well-organized site.
Okay.
I was prepared to come in here and be outraged by this.
Why?
Because I didn't realize that it was not, I knew it was not conforming, I didn't realize it was legally not conforming.
How many properties are like this in town? There cannot be many, right?
No.
So,
There's a few.
It's interesting.
Well, aren't they, like, the situation where you have, like, the antique house and they build the house in the back, is that kind of a similar?
Yeah. And we're gonna start getting some accessory dwelling units too, which would be a second residence on
Well,
the
that is
same
a
lot.
huge thing. We're gonna see that.
They're gonna come here?
No. They can go to the P&Z Commission, and as of right, they're gonna be able to do some things of a modest scale, but, and parking is a key.
But, so they're not gonna be coming before us?
I suspect there'll be some stuff.
Yeah,
Could be.
Yeah.
but not, yeah, mostly P and Z.
Anyway, I make a motion to approve this without any stipulations.
Second?
All in favor? 5-0 pass. Congratulations. Thank you for coming in front of the board. All right. That's great.
Being very patient for the easiest one.
Exactly. Okay, so this portion of the meeting is not public. We're going to move into approval of the minutes. So I shut off channel 79 at this?
No.
No, they still go, but we just aren't, this isn't public. Okay. Okay, so first of all, quickly, the approval of the minutes from July 17th. Did everybody have a chance to review that?
I did.
Honestly, Reed, I don't remember them right now. You sent them a little while ago.
Not too long ago.
Yeah.
It was a surprise.
3 weeks ago? 4 weeks
We
ago?
never did them.
Ah, okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Jana. I'll second. All in favor? It's 5-0 to approve the minutes from July 17th. Approval of the minutes from December 18th, 2024. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Matt makes a motion. I will second. All in favor?
I wasn't there.
Wasn't there. We got 4-0. Kevin is abstaining. Okay, so review of town council, the ZBA stuff. We're going to have a special session. We'll get everybody here involved in that. Yeah. You know what's interesting is we've already given this a run. We had town council, and I sat with planning and zoning, the zoning enforcement officer, and we kind of came up with a plan. Shortly after that, 2 of our applications were overridden by the CEO authority. So I think this needs to
No, I would say he exceeded his authority in doing so. I
They
wouldn't
claim
say-
he just exercised his authority.
I don't think that's what the town council
Town
memo
council said he
says,
was doing this
though.
right.
I
Town council
disagree.
basically said we. and
We
board-
can't enforce it ourselves. They said he can enforce it, but that's different than saying he can override what we clearly say. He has the authority to enforce zoning and our stipulations, et cetera. That doesn't give him the authority to be like, oh, that one? No, I'm ignoring that one. Because could he do that with the zoning code itself?
There's something in the zoning code that defines finished space very clearly. And he overruled that.
And town council
That
told me
one's,
had
but
nothing.
that's a tough one to go off
Yeah.
of, because they built to their approved plans. So there's even another layer of issue there,
Yep.
right? Where now you tell them to rip it out, but the town already approved the plans, so.
That's different, and there
that's
is a
tough.
case that's in working its way through the system on that point and whether the town's liable. But is there another example where it wasn't built pursuant to the plans and they just ignored our stipulation?
Old Stone?
23-year-old.
Yeah, so that is outrageous. As long as
But
our
did
stipulation was
CEO
clear.
say that that was okay?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
Despite
realize.
So that's been 2. Now we have a third.
Can I
that's
ask the second one, what was the stipulation?
up. For 23 Old Stone?
Yeah.
They had to keep all those walls.
Well, they had to get a structural engineer, and there was talk in the hearing, including Wilder's presentation, about what they were gonna keep. And we spelled it out pretty clearly. Now, we send,
And they kept
I'm
nothing.
not sure if you know this, but we send a detailed letter after every decision. That includes some specifics, like you must keep this, you must preserve that, or you can't do this, or whatever.
Did the CEO say it was unclear what we?
Nope.
No, we just decided it wouldn't make a difference. It's gonna be the same volume. It's just a matter of how they get there.
That's okay, just.
And the only way to correct it is on appeal. So if the neighbor appeals it, then it comes back in front of us.
They have a certain timeline to do it
Right,
within.
30 days from issuance of CO.
And I think they missed that.
The thing, that's why I said he's exceeding his authority by making it his own independent determination what's in the best interest of the town, when the zoning code clearly gives us the authority to make that determination, and him to enforce the determinations we make.
I don't understand, why wouldn't the town want, I mean, it's the best interest
Yeah.
of the town, like, why,
That's what I'm
where
saying.
do
It's
they,
one thing
where
if
does, I don't even know who that
I
would
think
be,
they're
who is
concerned,
that?
they're
Who- where-
concerned about litigation, if I'm thinking about, I think we should take this off
Yeah,
into
right.
the executive session.
We are.
do.
We are going to do that, and we will involve town council, because I think you'll be surprised by their take on this. I was. Special town council regarding hardship, are we gonna lump that into the same thing? Should we talk about that?
Sure.
We'll just
I
have a
think
We
discussion.
should
I think
have
we
20
should-
Elm Street teach a class.
Exactly, on how to define a hardship. Well, I think staff has done, I've seen an uptick in staff. I mean, I think you've done a much better job of communicating what we need to see to grant approval.
Getting there.
Possible holiday season gathering, Christmas was when, 4 months ago?
St. Patrick's Day?
Yeah, oh, that's a great
I like
idea.
to say Patrick's Day.
You guys want to do St. Patrick's Day?
Good one.
Yeah, just not on St. Patrick's Day.
Well,
It's a Monday. You said you ate Mondays.
I love
Can't do
drinking.
Mondays.
Well, I mean, we could do it on Thursday, following our next meeting. Thursday, March 20th?
Yeah.
I'm out of town.
19th.
19th?
19th is a Wednesday.
Private school.
That's our meeting.
Private school vacation, right?
That's, I think I may be challenged that week too.
Okay, do you want to do the following week? March 22nd, 23rd?
I'm out both weeks. I have kids that have 1 week, I have kids that have
This is
one.
why we've never had a thing.
I have kids that have 1 week difference, so basically the entire month of March, I am at children's disposal because we have.
Okay, so
children.
Aren't we always at children's disposal?
Yes.
Well, normally I can navigate it, but I cannot navigate around spring break.
I will put 3 options together, and we'll do the best we can
Yep.
with everybody. We'll just sign off on
Yeah,
it.
sorry about
All right,
that.
that's okay.
March is my only like tricky
Really bad month?
Yeah.
So it is 9:20 PM. I'm going to call it. We will be officially adjourned. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
John, second. All in favor? Thank you all. Difficult evening.
Thank you, Barb.